Your soil isn't broken. It's empty. There's a difference, and that difference is everything. Broken soil needs to be replaced. Empty soil just needs to be fed. Not with fertilizer, not with chemicals, but with life. Billions of microscopic organisms that eat, breathe, reproduce, and in doing so, turn hard, cracked, lifeless ground into something dark and soft and alive. 3 liquids do this. You can make all 3 at home with materials you either already own or can find for almost nothing. Farmers in Korea, Japan, and parts of West Africa have been making versions of these preparations for centuries, long before anyone had a microscope, long before soil science existed as a discipline. They didn't know what bacteria were, they just knew that certain fermented liquids made their crops grow stronger and their soils smell better, and their harvests come in heavier season after season. Modern soil science has now caught up with what those farmers already knew. What they were making were microbial inoculants, concentrated populations of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that restore the underground ecosystem that healthy soil depends on. By the time you finish this video, you'll know exactly how to make all 3, why each one works differently, and how to use them together to rebuild soil that most gardeners would give up on entirely. Subscribe to the channel before we get into this. New soil and garden videos go up every week, and this series on natural soil restoration is just getting started. Let's start with the foundation. Why is your soil dead in the first place? A single teaspoon of healthy, living garden soil contains somewhere between 100 million and 1 billion individual bacteria. It contains several yards of fungal threads, what scientists call hyphae, woven through the soil particles like an underground internet. It contains protozoa, beneficial nematodes, microarthropods, and earthworms. All of these organisms are doing something. The bacteria are breaking down organic matter and releasing nutrients in plant-available forms. The fungi, particularly mycorrhizal fungi, are extending plant root systems by factors of 10, sometimes 100, reaching minerals and water that roots alone could never access. The protozoa are eating bacteria and excreting nitrogen right in the root zone. The nematodes are regulating bacterial populations and cycling nutrients further. This is the soil food web. It has been operating in natural ecosystems for hundreds of millions of years, and it is what makes soil actually work. When this web collapses, through compaction, through synthetic fertilizer overuse, through repeated tilling, through pesticide application, or simply through neglect, what you're left with is mineral particles. Sand, silt, clay. Those particles can hold water to varying degrees, but they cannot feed plants in any meaningful way without the biological activity that transforms raw minerals into bioavailable nutrition. The fastest way to bring this web back is not to buy bagged fertilizer. Fertilizer feeds plants directly but does nothing for soil biology, and over time, high nitrogen synthetic inputs actually suppress mycorrhizal fungal development because plants stop reaching for soil nutrients when they're being handed them artificially. What rebuilds soil biology is reintroducing the organisms themselves and giving them food sources that allow their populations to explode. That is exactly what these 3 preparations do. Quick question before we move on. What does your soil actually look like right now? Is it hard and cracked? Does it drain poorly, or does it just look lifeless and grey no matter what you add to it? Drop it in the comments below. One word is enough. Cracked, grey, waterlogged, whatever describes it. I read every single comment, and your answer is going to help me decide exactly what we cover next on this channel. Now let's get into the second preparation. The first preparation is rice wash water, and it is so simple that most gardeners dismiss it before they try it. Uncooked rice is coated in lactic acid bacteria, Lactobacillus species, that exist on the grain surface before any processing occurs. These bacteria are among the most effective colonizers of degraded soil environments. They suppress soil-borne pathogens, including several fusarium species that cause root rot and damping off. They accelerate the decomposition of organic matter, which releases nutrients and feeds the broader soil food web, and they produce lactic acid as a metabolic byproduct, which lowers local soil pH in ways that make phosphorus and micronutrients more soluble and accessible to plant roots. Here's how to make it. Take 1 cup of uncooked white rice, not instant rice, not parboiled, just plain uncooked white rice, and rinse it in 2 to 3 cups of clean water, not filtered, not distilled. Regular tap water that has been left to sit for 24 hours to allow chlorine to off-gas. Chlorine kills the very bacteria you're trying to culture, so this step matters. Swish the rice in the water firmly for about 30 seconds. The water will turn cloudy. That cloudiness is starch, and that starch is food for your bacteria. Pour off this cloudy water into a clean glass jar. Discard the rice or cook it as normal. Cover the jar loosely with a breathable cloth held in place with a rubber band. Do not seal it tightly. Fermentation produces carbon dioxide, and you want that gas to escape. Leave the jar at room temperature, between 65 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit works well, for 2 to 3 days. At the end of this period, the liquid will smell slightly sour, almost like mild yogurt. There will likely be a thin film on the surface. This is correct. You've just cultivated a concentrated population of lactic acid bacteria. Before you use this, dilute it. The ratio is 1 part fermented rice wash to 10 parts water. Apply it as a soil drench around the base of your plants, or water it directly into empty garden beds you're preparing. For a 4x8 raised bed, 1 jar of diluted rice wash applied weekly for a month will produce visible changes in soil texture. The surface will stop crusting, the soil will drain more freely, and earthworm activity will increase noticeably. Gardeners in USDA hardiness zones 3 through 7 get the best results applying this in early spring as soils are warming, when conditions are ideal for bacterial colonization, but before heavy planting begins. In zones 8 through 11, where the growing season runs longer and soil temperatures rarely drop to the point of biological dormancy, rice wash can be applied year-round. One practical note: make a fresh batch every week. Fermented rice wash stored beyond 5 to 7 days begins to shift microbial populations in ways that reduce its benefit. Keep it simple. Keep it fresh. The second preparation is fermented plant juice, and this one is used extensively in Korean natural farming, a formal agricultural system developed by Han Kyu-cho in the 1960s that systematized many of these ancient East Asian soil practices into a teachable methodology. Research from the University of Hawaii's College of Tropical Agriculture has documented measurable improvements in soil microbial biomass and plant growth rates in plots treated with Korean natural farming inputs, including fermented plant juice. The principle behind this preparation is different from rice wash. Instead of culturing bacteria from an external source and introducing them to soil, fermented plant juice captures the biochemical contents of rapidly growing plant tissue. Auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, amino acids, trace minerals, and makes those compounds immediately bioavailable to both soil organisms and plant roots. Plants in their fastest growth phase contain the highest concentrations of these natural growth hormones. Harvest plant material when it is actively elongating. New growth tips, young leaves, early stage shoots. Comfrey Symphytum officinale is the gold standard for this preparation because it is extraordinarily mineral-rich, drawing calcium, potassium, and magnesium from deep in the subsoil through its long taproot. Young nettle, grass clippings taken before seed set, and comfrey can all be used together. For one batch, weigh out approximately 2 pounds or roughly 1 kilogram of fresh plant material. Chop it coarsely. Pieces 2 to 3 inches long are fine. Pack it into a clean, non-metallic container. A ceramic crock, a glass jar, or a food-grade plastic bucket all work well. Metal containers react with the acids produced during fermentation and should be avoided. Add 1 pound, roughly 500 grams, of brown sugar or unsulfured blackstrap molasses. The ratio is approximately 1 part sugar to 2 parts plant material by weight. The sugar serves 2 purposes. It draws moisture and plant compounds out of the tissue through osmotic pressure, and it feeds the fermenting microorganisms during the 5 to 7 day culturing period. Mix thoroughly. Press the plant material down firmly so it is submerged beneath the liquid that begins to accumulate within the first few hours. Cover with a breathable cloth. Within 24 hours you will see bubbling. This is active fermentation and exactly what you want. Stir once daily to prevent surface mold from establishing. After 5 to 7 days, strain the liquid through cheesecloth or a fine mesh strainer. The resulting liquid should be dark amber to dark brown, sweet-smelling with a slight fermented edge. It stores for months in a cool, dark location. Dilute fermented plant juice at a ratio of 1 part liquid to 20 parts water for soil application. Pour this diluted mixture directly around the base of your plants, soaking the root zone thoroughly so the growth compounds and beneficial organisms reach the areas where biological activity matters most. For foliar spray, which delivers growth compounds directly to leaf surfaces for fast uptake, dilute further at 1 to 30 and use a fine mist setting on your sprayer to coat both the upper and lower surfaces of leaves evenly. The underside of leaves is where stomata are most concentrated, and that is where absorption happens fastest. Apply foliar sprays in the early morning before temperatures climb, giving the liquid time to absorb before the heat of the day causes it to evaporate off the surface. The results gardeners report from fermented plant juice used as a regular soil drench include faster establishment of transplants, more vigorous root development, and markedly increased earthworm populations. Earthworms are one of the most reliable indicators of soil health. They do not colonize biologically dead soil, and their presence means the food web is rebuilding. Comfrey thrives in zones 3 through 9 and can be harvested multiple times per season for ongoing FPJ production. The third preparation is compost tea, and it is the most powerful of the three because it delivers biological diversity rather than a concentrated population of specific organisms. Compost, when it's finished properly, contains thousands of species of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and beneficial nematodes in a dormant or low-activity state. The goal of compost tea is to take those organisms, wake them up, multiply their populations exponentially over 24 to 36 hours, and then apply them to soil and plant surfaces before they run out of food and begin to die back. The quality of your compost is the single most important variable in this preparation. Finished compost should be dark, nearly black, crumbly in texture, and smell unmistakably of earth after rain. That smell comes from a compound called geosmin, produced by Streptomyces bacteria, and its presence is confirmation that your compost contains active biology. If your compost smells like ammonia, it is too nitrogen-heavy and still decomposing. If it smells sour or like rotting vegetation, fermentation has occurred anaerobically and the microbial community is not what you want. Let these composts mature further before using them. For one batch of compost tea, place 2 pounds, about 1 kilogram, of finished compost into a mesh bag or a clean pillowcase tied shut. Lower this into a 5-gallon bucket filled with unchlorinated water. The same rule applies here as with rice wash. Let tap water sit 24 hours before using or use collected rainwater, which is naturally unchlorinated and slightly acidic, in ways that favor beneficial microorganisms. Connect an aquarium air pump with an air stone to the bottom of the bucket. This is non-negotiable. Without constant oxygenation, you will grow anaerobic bacteria, organisms that thrive in oxygen-free environments. And anaerobic compost tea applied to plant roots can actually cause disease rather than prevent it. The aerobic organisms you want, the ones that build soil, protect roots, and cycle nutrients, require oxygen to survive and multiply. Keep that pump running for the entire brewing period. Add 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. This is food for your bacteria. Some practitioners also add a teaspoon of fish hydrolysate and a teaspoon of kelp powder to feed fungal populations alongside bacterial ones, giving the finished tea a broader microbial profile. These additions are optional but worthwhile if you're dealing with severely depleted soil where fungal networks have completely collapsed. Brew for 24 to 36 hours. The finished tea will be foamy at the surface. That foam is produced by microbial activity and is a positive sign. It will smell earthy, rich, and alive. Apply it immediately. Compost tea has a window of about 4 hours after brewing ends before the microbial populations begin crashing from food depletion. Do not store it. Brew it when you're ready to use it. Apply compost tea at full strength as a soil drench, approximately 1 gallon per 10 square feet of garden bed. For foliar application, strain it through cheesecloth a second time to remove any particles that might clog a spray nozzle, and apply it to leaf surfaces in the early morning or late evening. never in full afternoon sun, which will kill the organisms before they can establish on leaf surfaces. In zones 4 through 7, apply compost tea in spring after the last frost date when soil temperatures have reached at least 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Below this temperature, bacterial activity slows dramatically and the tea's organisms will not establish effectively. In warmer zones 8 through 11, compost tea can be applied throughout the growing season, with monthly applications through the summer months delivering consistent biological reinforcement. Used individually, each of these preparations produces measurable improvements in soil biology. Used together in a rotation, they address different layers of the soil food web simultaneously and rebuild depleted soil faster than any one preparation can achieve alone. A practical rotation for a garden that is starting from severely depleted ground looks like this. Apply fermented rice wash weekly for the first month to establish a foundational lactic acid bacterial population and begin breaking down any residual soil compaction. In week 3, introduce the first application of fermented plant juice to begin feeding existing soil organisms and delivering natural growth hormones to any plants already in the ground. At the end of the first month, brew and apply a full batch of compost tea to seed the soil with the diverse microbial community that will, over time, build the soil food web back to functional health. From month 2 onward, rotate these 3 preparations on a 2-week cycle and watch what happens to your soil structure. The first thing most gardeners notice is that the surface stops forming a hard crust after watering. This is because soil aggregation is beginning. Microbial byproducts, particularly a glycoprotein called glomalin produced by mycorrhizal fungi, act as a natural glue that binds soil particles into clusters. These clusters, called aggregates, create the crumbly texture that experienced gardeners recognize as the hallmark of truly healthy soil. Water infiltration improves next. Where water once pooled on the surface or ran off, it begins to penetrate freely as those aggregates create a porous structure with channels for both air and moisture. Soil that drains well but retains moisture, rather than shedding it or becoming waterlogged, is soil with good aggregate structure built by living organisms. Then the earthworms arrive. This is the clearest visible confirmation that soil biology is returning. Earthworms consume bacteria and fungi, digest organic matter, and produce castings that are among the most nutrient-dense substances in any garden. A soil with abundant earthworm populations is, almost by definition, a soil with a functioning food web. Over successive growing seasons, treated soils accumulate humus, the stable, carbon-rich fraction of decomposed organic matter that resists further decomposition and builds long-term fertility. Humus holds water. It holds nutrients and releases them slowly. It gives soil its characteristic dark color and its ability to support plant life year after year, without constant external inputs. The farmers who developed these preparations weren't doing soil science. They were doing something more practical. They were paying attention over generations to what worked. The fact that modern microbiology can now explain why rice wash water delivers lactic acid bacteria, why fermented plant juice contains measurable levels of gibberellins and cytokinins, and why aerated compost tea multiplies aerobic organisms that build soil structure. None of that changes the fact that this knowledge existed long before the laboratory did. Your garden doesn't need more fertilizer. It needs more life. Start with 1 jar of rice wash water this week. That is all it takes to begin. Leave a comment below telling me which preparation you're going to try first: rice wash, fermented plant juice, or compost tea. And if you have already been using any of these methods, tell me what changes you've seen in your soil. That kind of real-world observation is genuinely useful to every gardener watching this. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video in this series, where we go deeper into Korean natural farming inputs and the ones that have the most dramatic effect on flowering and fruiting crops.